have my mini tripod sitting on a stack of books right now, which is very appropriate for this video. Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I thought I would try doing a reading list for 2019. And this is not something that I've done and stuck with in the past because I am not a huge reader. I want to be, but I'm not. Last year, I set a goal for myself to try to read X amount of books, and I had them all picked out, and I actually talked about them in one of my vlogs at the beginning of last year. I read a handful of those books, but I didn't read all of them. So this year, I thought, I'm going to make a main video, and I'm going to list off 12 books. That is one book for every month, and I'm going to set a goal to try to stay diligent enough that I read all 12 of these books for the year of 2019. Now, I know some of you guys are going to be sitting there listening to this and be like, 12 books in a year? I can read 12 books in a month. And to that I say, good for you! I can't. I do not have the discipline to sit down and read constantly. I get bored easily, and a lot of books I have to really push myself to read all the way through or to stay interested in. So one book every month is actually slightly daunting to me, but I'm going to give it my best effort and hopefully it'll work. Okay, so I have the stack of books right here, and I watched a little bit of other videos on this to kind of get an idea of how to introduce each book. All of these other videos that I watched were like great self-help books for 2019 books that I'm gonna read that you should read too. And these are all books that I've not read, so I actually can't recommend any of them to you or say you need to read these because I've also not read them myself. So if any of these books that I list you have read, by all means, please let me know in the comments below what you thought of it, if you enjoyed it, if you didn't enjoy it, or if you read it and you were like, I read it, but this book is better. So I guess I'm just gonna basically go through each one of these in no particular order and explain why I'm deciding to read each one. So the first book is The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain, and it actually goes along with this one, which is The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Now these two are very, very different because 9/10 of the books in this stack are from Goodwill, so none of them are actually matching, basically. But, so this is the great illustrated classics, so this is all illustrated and everything in it. And, oh, it was apparently a 6th grader book owned by a Tammy Edgar. So thanks, Tammy. The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, both of these are sort of literary classics, and they're the types of books that I want to be able to say I have read. Why, I don't really know, but there you have it. So I went ahead and I put these two in the list, and I'm actually currently reading Tom Sawyer, and I am most of the way through it because I started reading this in December because this was part of my reading list from last year that I didn't get through. So currently working on this one, and then like I said, another one that I had was Huckleberry Finn to read as well because I feel like they kind of go hand in hand. The next book that I have is The Odyssey of Homer, and I remember reading this in school in 6th grade, and I remember really enjoying it and really liking it, but I don't remember anything about it. So my brother-in-law Steve was kind enough to lend me a copy of his because in all the times that Dan and I go to thrift stores, we have found multiple copies of the Iliad, but we've never found a copy of the Odyssey. So he lent me his copy, and I plan on reading this all the way through because it is a very grand adventure that happens in this book, and I've wanted to reread it so I actually retain what I read. The next two books also go hand in hand, and they are Sue Grafton Murder Mysteries, and it is E is for Evidence and F is for Fugitive. And if you aren't familiar with Sue Grafton, she does murder mystery novels, and she does them to, well, she did. She's passed now. She wrote murder mystery novels, one for every letter of the alphabet. And she actually passed away before she finished writing Z. So all A through Y is released, and I actually own A through W. So the only two that I don't have are X and Y. But this is about as far through them as I've gotten, so I put these in there because these are lighter reads, in my opinion. They aren't that difficult to read. I can usually read them pretty quickly. You can see they're very vastly different in size. It seems to be that the further through the series she went, the larger all of the books got. Just one letter doubled the size of the book, and they tend to stay about this size. So these I have in there as sort of a relaxer book or an easy read book between potentially harder to read books or books that I have a harder time staying interested in. That after I finally finish one of those, I can come to one of these and read it, and it'll be an easy read, a quick read, something to kind of encourage me to continue reading because I know I enjoy these series of books, and I know that these will be something that I can read and enjoy reading. So that's why I have two of those in here. The next book that I have is Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the first one, The Lightning Thief. Now, I have not read any of these books, I have not seen any of the movies, but I have been recommended these in the past. So I thought when I saw this one at the thrift store, which is where I get essentially 100% of my books, 99.8% of my books. I saw it and I thought, I'm gonna pick this up and give it a read and see what all the hullabaloo is about. So I grabbed that, I figured I would read it, and then I also thought I have the first one, so if I enjoy this, I can keep my eyes open for the other books in the series. The next book that I have is The Hunchback of Notre Dame. This I saw and I was very interested in. I am a huge Disney fan. I love Disney, love the Disney movies, all of the live action remakes that they're making I think are cool, and I saw this and I thought, I want to know where Disney got their inspiration. And I know, before you say anything, I know this is not going to be like the Disney movie. I have no expectations for it being like the Disney movie, but I want to see what the original story was actually about. So that is why I picked this one up, and oh, it is abridged. I just noticed that. That's kind of annoying. So this is the abridged version. That's actually kind of annoying that it's abridged. I just noticed that, and I've owned this book for a long time. The next book is Kathy Reich's Death du Jour, and Kathy Reich is, as it says right on the top of this book, the author who inspired the Fox television drama Bones. I love Bones. I thought it was a great TV series, and I thought if I could have Bones essentially in novel form, I think that would be super. So that is why I picked that up, and I am hoping it is very, very good. These last four books are on a almost entirely different vein than these first 8. This first one is the autobiography of Johnny Cash, and Dan found this one and picked it up, and I don't know if either of us have read it yet, actually. But it is a book that I'm very interested in reading to learn more about Johnny Cash. Respect him deeply as a musician, and I think hearing and learning more about his story would be absolutely fascinating. The next book is So Anyway by John Cleese. And this is also sort of an autobiography of John Cleese's life. And if you're not familiar with who John Cleese is, please stop watching this video and go look him up. So this is an autobiography of his life, and it's not his full life. This is only a very small portion of his life. And it's huge, but there is another book after this that I don't know if it's out, if it's already written, or if he is in the process of writing it. I don't know for sure. But Dan and I both love Monty Python, love almost anything John Cleese is in, and so he picked this up, and Dan has not read all the way through it, but he's read a lot of it, and he loved it, so I grabbed this one and added it to my collection, so I can also read it. This next book is Things I Overheard While Talking to Myself by Alda. And I picked this up because I grew up watching the TV series MASH, and Alan Alda played the main character in that TV series, Hawkeye. So I saw this and I thought I would love to read this and just kind of see what comes out of Alan Alda's brain. Picked that up and I'm very curious to read it. This last book from my 2019 reading list is actually a book Dan picked out for me. So when I was putting all of these books together, I was stacking them up and I was counting them and I thought, okay, I need 12 books to read. And I got to those 11 and I couldn't decide what I wanted my 12th book to read to be. So I asked Dan, you have lots of books that I don't necessarily consider reading that often because a lot of them are very deep and theological and I can't wrap my brain around them. But I want you to look through your bookshelf, which is very large rather, and I want you to find a book that you think I would enjoy reading. And so he picked up this one, and it is Surprised by Hope by N.T. Wright. It says, Rethinking Heaven, the Resurrection, and the Mission of the Church. So I'm going to give this one a read, and I do know, just by what Dan has told me about N.T. Wright, that he is a wonderful author. I have very high respect for N.T. Wright as an author, and so very, very excited to read this. This is one of those books, though, that, like I said at the beginning of the video, that I sometimes have a hard time getting through. So I'm probably going to save this one to the second half of the year in hopes that I've gotten myself into enough of a rhythm to then be able to get through it a little easier. And hopefully by then I'll be a little more excited about reading and will read it and be like, oh yeah, I really want to keep going into this. All right, so that is my potential 2019 reading list. Let me know in the comments below if there are any of these books that I showed that you've not read that you really want to read, and I will make sure to let you know how I enjoyed them after I read them. If you guys have any suggestions on books that you have read that you think I would enjoy based on this list of books that I gave, by all means let me know. Make sure to check out the vlog videos that I post every Sunday on this channel because those will be where I am saying once I finish certain books and what books I am starting next, and that way you'll know if I'm keeping up with my reading goals or not. Make sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already so you don't miss any more fun videos I post every Wednesday and Sunday. Have a great week and I will see you guys next week. Bye. Oh. Across the top it says a Bantam classic, and I definitely read that as a Batman classic for a second, so.